This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Valerie Greene for the first time. Welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Phantom, it's super fun to be here. I'm doing awesome. How are you doing?
Doing great. I want to let people know if you're a podcast, want to be a podcast guest, or you have a podcast. If you scan the QR code, it's up there right now. That's for our pod match, which is how we actually got you as a guest on this episode. It's a tool that allows podcast hosts and guests to find each other. So if you scan that with your phone, you can check that out and learn about it. It's a cool tool. I've been using it for 2 years, and it's allowed me to be here today. The other thing I want to mention to people is that we do have your URL below, and that's going to pop up later as a QR code, and I'll let people know when that is. But for now, before we get to the heart of your story, I always ask everybody that's on the show a couple of questions like, what motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
Yes, and of course that always relates to my story. But yeah, what motivates me is just it's hard to explain, but I'm a relationship coach, so that's this is for creatives, and we're going to talk about healing, and I think healing is very creative. So of course we'll get into that. But for me, I always felt as a kid like there was something wrong with me. And it's now that I recognize, and through no fault of my parents, because I know they did their best. Their parents were not very empathic either, so you can't give what you didn't receive. They gave me a lot of great stuff, but they didn't know how to give empathy. And so I hadn't really gotten empathy until I met my ex-husband. I thought that's what love was. And so as a kid, because I didn't get empathy, I just got, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Think about this instead, then you'll feel different. And I'm an extremely emotional person. And so what I made that mean is there's something wrong with me for having feelings, and I tried to suppress my feelings. And then I just felt like I was bullied and I didn't get any emotional support. So I just felt like there was something wrong with me. And I was very self-critical. And that really impacted me in my relationships all throughout my 20s, because I argued constantly with my dad. I mean, that gets into my story, but so I hated conflict. So I swept it under the rug, but then I didn't have better skills to resolve conflict. So I would sweep it under the rug until it reached a threshold, and then I would criticize my partner, and then he would get defensive, and then we'd be arguing and watch, rinse, repeat over and over and over again. Until that finally came to a head. I mean, I know I'm answering the story question, like somewhere in my 20s, where I realized I'm the common denominator, and that really started me on a journey of healing. But I didn't actually really know what that meant. So I was just doing the outer work, which I now teach, is just how to fight well, how to have a good relationship, how to not pick the wrong person, like all those books back then. And I studied with different teachers and kind of used them in the trenches. And it did help a little bit, but the first time I really got empathy was when I was 29, when I met my ex-husband. And it was crazy to realize, now I'm 47, but like it was crazy to realize that I hadn't gotten empathy until then, because it was like I didn't even know what it was. Like he was having a hard day, and he was sharing something challenging, and I did what I was taught to do, which was like, oh, well, you shouldn't really look at it that way. Look at it differently and you'll feel better. Look on the bright side, because that's what I'd always gotten my whole life. That was the encouragement that my parents thought, I needed. And like, I'm not criticizing them. I mean, that's all they can do. But he sort of looked at me and he's like, well, what would feel better is to get empathy. And I'm like, what's that? Like, I'm laughing about it now, but it was like shocking at the time. And he's like, well, it would feel good to hear, oh, that sounds really hard. How can I support you? And I'm like, I'd literally never heard that before.
It seems like today there's a lot of people are being told that's too soft. Like we live in a world, like I'm a child of the 70s. So being a child of the 70s, like I was like, born in 67. And all through the 70s, I was like romanticizing like what the hippies did, like peace and love and all that. And I wanted to know about, like, Hendrix was gone. I wanted to know about it. Janis Joplin and all that stuff, and then Woodstock, and I'm like, hey, these people care about other people.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
And,
a novel concept nowadays?
and then they like, growing up, we got into like the punk movement. We got into like the
Mhm.
hedonism of like disco. We got into all, get into the whole, Reagan movement. It's like, oh, government's the problem. You shouldn't care about other people, right? It's like this started getting to these new mindsets. Well, greed is good. You get the Wall Street mindset. So now you get to this point where, like, just to be edgy, all the algorithms are all based on you, like, saying something outrageous. And with
Mhm.
the attention economy, it doesn't have to be true. It just has to be outrageous.
Right, yeah, that's
And so if
definitely
people have that, there's no empathy in that. It's
Mhm.
just about like self-aggrandizement, making as much money, getting as many clicks, pushing down other people if they don't get clicks, or you making money by pushing other people down.
Yep.
So it seems like it's a hard thing to look in the mirror and then realize like a lot of times that you're otherizing other people because you don't feel good about yourself.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah,
you project the thing that is actually wrong with you on someone else and never look at the looking glass self as the Victorians, had, the Victorian poets had this idea of the looking glass self.
Mhm.
And a lot of writers and creative people, when you get down to it, like the singer-songwriters, the filmmakers, the actors, the creators, they dive into that looking glass self. And then they find something that's actually, it vibrates or is like recognizable to other people because they challenged themselves and they brought it out of the outside of themselves to the world from the internal to the external. It's that synergy that you have to do as an artist to connect, but you also have to do that as a human being to connect.
Yeah, 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 which is why healing is creative.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a full
Um,
circle where they just spin it back around. But, like, it seems like you found that thing. It's like, yeah, you have to have and the empathy, like, you have to have empathy for yourself, and
exactly,
then you
yeah,
have then you can have empathy for other people, but if you, like, hate yourself, you're always gonna say, "Well, I can't cook, I can't, be a mathematician, I can't" all the things you can't do. All the things that you're not good enough. Oh, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not whatever enough. Well, if you're never enough, then how are you ever going to be with anybody else? Because you're always not enough.
yep, no, it's so true, it's like, I love that Wayne Dyer quote, "We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are."
Yeah, we all have filters, right? Like your brain, in order to like digest the world, because we have so many inputs coming in. When you see something or experience something, you filter it to what you want to know. Like what your body thinks is going to keep you safe, what your mind thinks is going to keep you safe. So what you perceive is your reality.
Yep.
If you've been programmed that every time you see something, that's what you respond to, well, that you're never going to get out of that box until you reprogram yourself.
Exactly. I think that's a wonderful way of putting it, and yeah, and that's what healing is reprogramming yourself. And I'm a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, so of course I can talk about that. Um, but yeah, it's funny anecdote. I know you're gonna ask me 3 things that I want people to know about me. I actually started out, I went to NYU film school,
Oh,
back
cool,
in
cool.
1996.
So you wanted to be a
I
filmmaker?
grew up in the 70s too, but I mean, I was born in 78, so I was 2 in 1980, so I don't remember the 70s. You're a little older than me.
Mhm.
But I was really drawn to editing,
Oh,
and
like
now looking back on it, what I realize is what I was really wanting was to learn how to edit the movies inside our heads.
oh, that's what
'Cause
you wanted to be like the frame. Like the
yeah,
director's
like
frame that's always really interesting is how they frame the scenes.
yes, exactly, and what they put in and what they leave
What they
out,
what
right?
they choose to leave out because they have like, back in the day when it was all on film, like, you could capture different you have multiple cameras running, you can have lots of film, and you gotta cut it and mix it and put it together on the board, right? You gotta use all
Totally.
the tools to figure it out. Now we have all these
Right.
digital assets, and it's like crazy. You got way too much.
Right.
It's like, well, how do you make the if you get it, it's like an overload. Sometimes,
It
like, less
is.
is more. Sometimes having older, like, as a musician, having analog equipment versus digital, you have limitations. Sometimes
Yes,
as an
no, it's
artist,
so
the
true.
limitation is actually good.
Yeah, 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 it's like decision fatigue with all the things you could do.
Too
Um,
many choices, and then you make the wrong ones.
right? Yeah, which is like, I mean, I'll keep bringing it back to, healing and the relationship with yourself because it's an amazing parallel, right? Because it's actually the same thing. It's knowing your values, is focusing on what's important, is not having all this extraneous the information coming at you, is staying focused and centered. And then what editing the movies inside our heads means is really looking at, okay, what's the emotional charge to that experience and what did I make it mean? What are my beliefs about it? Because whatever I believe about something, that's what I'm going to see. Like kind of like the phenomenon that you just mentioned is very well known. I forgot what it's called in neuroplasticity, but like let's say you like are looking at a particular kind of car. Let's say you're looking at like a red Audi or whatever. I don't know. I don't really know
Yeah,
that
you
much
see
about
it
cars.
everywhere.
Yeah, then all of a sudden you just notice that same car everywhere because you're primed to look at it.
Yeah, your
So
focus
that
on it. Yeah, you're yeah, it's like you can get synesthesia or you can actually get this narrow focus. And, like,
mhm.
your filter is like, "Oh, I'm gonna see this BMW. I'm gonna see this car, this red BMW. I see it all the time. Boom, 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 boom. I'm gonna see it." And so then the same thing happens if you get these inputs. Like,
Mhm.
somebody said something, and there's a phrase that's in your head, in your subconscious. If you ever hear it again, it brings back that picture in your mind. And so
Right,
you
which is
associate those words with that picture in your mind or that scene in your mind, and so then you either like it or you don't like it, and you respond in that way, you know? Yeah.
exactly, which is what it means. And I'll keep bringing it back to romantic relationships. That's what it means when we get triggered in
Yeah.
a romantic relationship. Like for example, my dad used to yell at me a lot. So if my husband's raising his voice, sometimes I start to project and I feel really small, even if he's not yelling at me.
Mhm.
So it's like,
That's like
how to
ridiculous
edit the
tones.
movie in my head in that case is to slow down and pay attention to my body sensations and pay attention to my feelings. And, is that really happening? Is he really yelling at me? No, he's just raising his voice, but I feel like he is. What can I say? I feel small right now. Could you speak in a lower tone?
Mhm.
Then I'm getting back in my window of tolerance. But it takes a lot of self awareness in order to be able to recognize that. So it's like that's, how I'm relating to what you said about like our beliefs, and we project everything on the outside world. If I'm feeling bad about myself, then I'm going to look for critical things in him. So switch that up and say, how can I have self acceptance for my feelings and needs? How can I have self acceptance? Like, what's evidence that I am a worthy person? How can I believe that? Right? How can I look for
Yeah.
evidence of that? So it's like working with our beliefs, finding evidence for what we want to believe, and slowing down, feeling our feelings and needs, expressing them with an open heart is not easy. It's simple, but not easy.
Yeah, it's a lot of
That's
things
what it
that
means to be like
are
really.
fraught with, like, difficulty because a lot of things that people have these idealized visions of, like, what they think the perfect relationship is or what they think you run into the perfection trap. Like, everybody, like, if you're an artist, it like, it happens all the time. It's like, you wanna be so perfect, but what is perfect? The nature of art in itself, when you really come down to it, imperfection is beauty. And every time you try to make something too perfect, you kind of destroy the beauty of what could be because you
Absolutely.
got this filter that thinks, that makes the artist do like 100 variations when the like variation number 4 is actually the truest intent that they had, but then they got scared of it. And then they spend the rest of the time up to variation 100 wrecking it. So
Yeah.
it can happen like in a relationship that you have this vision of what you think it should be, but you don't actually embrace what it is. You don't live in the present
Right.
moment. You're living for this future moment that's so perfect, never happens.
And then
And
we're
then every day
juggling
that
what
you're in,
is.
you don't appreciate the days you're in.
Yeah, no, I think that's incredibly well said. And I think that if we're also holding ourselves to a high standard, the same thing applies. If I'm thinking that I should be perfect, if I'm thinking that I should be able to express myself with an open heart and never argue, and that, as a relationship coach, I should never be arguing ever, like, then I'm going to criticize myself anytime I make a mistake. And ironically, that's likely to lead to an argument, because if I'm criticizing myself, I'm more likely to feel like I'm out of my window of tolerance. I'm feeling down on myself. I'm feeling ashamed. And just like you said, if we don't like ourselves, we're going to project that outward. And then I'll find things to be critical about with my husband. And then I will, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then I will start an argument,
Yeah,
because I'll
you get
point out
addicted
what
to
I
the
don't like
cycle.
about him.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes you get addicted to the cycle. If you get addicted to the chaos, if you get addicted to the argument, then you find yourself
Mhm.
creating the argument. And then
Exactly.
it's a box that you say you're not comfortable with, but you live in that box all the time.
Right. It's like the
So
devil we know, right?
yeah, so how do you do in order to get out of it? Like sometimes it's scarier to be outside the toxic situation than to be in it
Mhm.
until you get the
Right.
critical mass that says, "Oh, I can't take it anymore."
Yes, yes, yes. Right, right, which is where I got in my 20s, where I was like, "I can't take it anymore, I have to learn different," and that actually did prime me to meet my ex-husband, who taught me empathy. And, we did eventually realize we wanted different things and transition into a loving friendship, and now I'm happily married with the man that I'm with now. But, it was such a transformative experience for me to realize that I don't have to judge my own feelings. I don't
Mhm.
have to judge his feelings. I can actually accept what is and be with what is, and not hold myself to this perfectionistic standard, like you're saying, and like actually, wait a minute, I'm human, he's human.
Give room
Then I
to
can look at what it is that I need and what he needs, and we feel like we're on the same team. And then conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing. I want one thing, he wants another thing. That just means we have to go deeper.
yeah.
It's an
It's
opportunity. What do you want? What does that provide for you? What are some alternative ways of getting it? What do I want? What are some alternative ways of me getting it? How can we brainstorm solutions that meet both of our needs? All of a sudden you're in a creative conversation,
well,
as
it
opposed
seems
to
like you're in
criticizing each other.
well, it seems like you're in a real well, I don't know if people are real, but like if you're in a relationship where you have give and take, you have conversation, you're not scared to speak your mind, that you're not holding it in, that you actually can be self-actualized, right? If a lot of times people are in situations and they're restrained by all these like paradoxes, like you want to be in a perfect marriage, but you're not happy. You
Right.
keep on looking for your partner to give you the happiness, but maybe that's not actually the right partner. Maybe you fell in love too fast. Maybe because your friends were falling in love, they were getting married. You didn't do it because you really wanted it. You projected this thing that wasn't really, you didn't understand it. So you fell into it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you
A
don't
lot of
really,
people.
if you don't plan, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, a lot of people do fall into that trap, unfortunately. And, when I work with people, I mean, when I work with couples, then of course it's all about teaching them how to um, speak from an open heart with each other and work through their issues. But a lot of times I wind up working with just one person in a relationship or with singles. And then how that applies to what you're saying is um, it really always comes back to going within and asking myself, what are my values? What is the culture I want to create with somebody? Did I choose this person because I'm lonely and I don't want to be alone? Then it's about my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Then it's about, am I emotionally available to myself? Am I happy being single? Or because a lot of times when people are not happy being single, it's because they don't know how to relate to their own emotions. They're stuck in their heads, and they are not recognizing that. Because what healing is it's having unconditional love for everything that arises within us.
That's a
And
hard thing to do because
yeah, yeah.
a lot of times things aren't gonna go perfect. It's like it's the happy accident again. It's like the imperfection. Life is very imperfect. but people
Absolutely.
want it to be perfect. And so that's always gonna be a struggle until you're not here, right? And it's like we have to it's like an idea with, like, fusion jazz. I'll explain what
Mhm.
I mean. In fusion jazz, there's this idea there's no bad note, there's an opportunity. So you could have a piece that was planned, but when you go on stage, you might not follow that plan. You're gonna
Yep.
follow what you actually hear in a moment, and there's nothing wrong with what anybody does.
Yep.
But the whole group will just follow what is happening in the moment. And that might seem like cacophony or seem like, well, how could that happen? If you're a classical musician, you'd have a hard time because
Exactly.
you need a plan. You need it to be on the sheet, and it's not on the sheet. But
Yep.
that's the way life is. Sometimes it's not on the sheet. It's like a athlete that has to respond to a play that they didn't see, they never practiced, and they
Yep.
have to kind of take the benefit of their 10,000, 20,000 hours or 100,000 hours and react in that moment to what's appropriate.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It's
that's
not
why
always
fusion
what
jazz is
happened before, it's
so
like, what happened now?
it's so hard to get to, like, a maestro level with, but it's so fun to be around, because it's, like, it's so freeing to just be around all these people just improving and riffing off each other and,
Yeah, 'cause it's its own beauty. Like, if you get a bunch of artists that kinda riffing off each other, like, even in my job of programming, when we go into a jazz session and we have all these engineers and we say, "There's no bad idea. No one's gonna beat you up. Go on a whiteboard, put up your idea." And if you get a really free environment, everybody puts their idea up and they don't care if it's gonna hurt somebody's ego, right? You just
Exactly.
put it up. And that's how you move forward. Like, if you care about I've been in organizations where it's like, "Oh, this head architect is very, like, into ego," and if you put up anything that goes against what they want, it's not gonna go anywhere, right? But if you get into an organization that's more bottom up, they don't care about that, they actually encourage it. And
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
to decide, like, which one do I wanna be in? Do I wanna be in the one
totally.
that's top down or I wanna be the bottom up?
Yeah, bottom up is more fun, but you have to be comfortable with, not having a script and
Yeah,
being
some people don't
more
like
in
that,
your
they're scared.
feelings and your intuition, and that's also incredibly important in relationships.
Yeah, some people want that script. Like, they don't know what to do without it.
Yeah,
And then some people say, well, they kinda like it's like, 50-50. Sometimes they want a script, sometimes they don't. They don't know what it is, so it's kinda like it's not all or nothing. It's like, oh, it's somewhere in between. That's the gray
yeah,
areas are
no,
hard
of
to
course.
deal with because it's like nothing's usually like yes or no, on and off, great black and white.
Right, yeah, no, exactly, and that's the cool thing about what I do as a relationship coach is I do take both a top-down and a bottom-up approach, because I think both are incredibly important. So the top-down is, of course, principles about what makes relationships sustainable in the long term, which is a lot of teachings about what is secure attachment, what is important. Shared values and vision are more important than shared interests, and the skills that you need in order to make relationship work, empathy being one of them, as I mentioned. But then, of course, the bottom up approach is equally important. How are you relating to your own feelings? How are you, you know, responding when you're triggered? How do you self soothe, relax your nervous system, get into an open hearted space, and then riff with what's happening from an open-hearted space where the other person feels like you're on their team. you know, it's
Yeah,
like you have to be able to respond that way in the moment, and that's easier said than done, which is why we need practices.
that
And
that's interesting 'cause the thing I bring up is we go to college, we take all these courses, we get certifications, but nobody ever teaches us how to actually communicate effectively within relationships as like a practice. They have to
right,
come to a person like you, and it's not thought of as like, well, the world it's like communication and getting along is a super, society actually wants should be a priority, it's like an afterthought.
I know. Yeah, and there's many reasons for that, which, I mean, I have my theories, of course. But of course, I'm happy to be, I do feel like it's my purpose to fill in the gaps.
So, yeah, and then people find, like, they need to go to someone like yourself. They find, like, they were never taught. Like, a lot of people assume, like, in a family structure, like, your parents teach you. Like, your
Right,
family
exactly.
structure teaches you, but a lot of times in family structures, they're broken,
Yep.
and then nobody talks about it. So they don't really give you like, your mom and your dad, your grandpa, they don't give you the tool.
Right,
Everybody assumes they're gonna give it to you. Society
right.
kinda makes an assumption that you're gonna get it from the
Yeah, yeah,
microcosm.
and certainly not in
But
today's day and age, as we're
you
talking about.
don't.
I think people were more likely to get it in the '70s than they are now.
Yeah, 'cause there
Now
was
you
more
have, like.
time. Yeah, people were, like, working, like, one job, and maybe somebody was at home,
Right,
and now people are working 3 jobs and nobody's home. 3 fourths.
exactly. Yeah, like, who's home to be able to give the kid that emotional attunement, It's unfortunate, like, even if parents have the skills, they don't necessarily have the time anymore.
Yeah, time is money. I mean, like, you're home, but you're working from home.
Right,
So you're not
right,
available. So you're physically in the house, but Johnny doesn't get to talk to you. Susie doesn't get to talk to you because you're too busy and you're stressed out. So a lot of
exactly.
times everybody's so overstressed, kinda pushed to the limit, and then, like, the things that they should be able to do, they can't do because they really have no room, and it's really kinda like, how do you create boundaries within relationships, within structures like a families, couples, partners, to get people, like, the space and they say, "Hey, no, let's not watch streaming. Let's not doom scroll. Maybe we need to talk."
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, and it's sad, that when I talk to young people now that, a lot of them say that they didn't get those, even if their parents were emotionally available, they were too busy. And, so I agree with you. And we can't count on people getting that from their families. And that is one of the reasons why I'm motivated to do this for a living, because it was the biggest shift for me that it felt to actually receive emotional attunement. And, now me and my husband are very emotionally attuned, and he's very emotionally available. And, we have practices that we do to stay connected, and, questions we ask each other on a daily basis in order to know really what's going on. What's the pulse of what's going on for you? What matters to you the most right now? How are you struggling and how can I support you? Or what was the most fulfilling moment of your day? Like, I just think it's really important to have the time to speak about that. And
That's super
unfortunately, most
interesting.
people don't.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times we've got, like, again, the overload of this, like, you got your watch, you got your tablet, you got your phone, you're all people bringing their phone into their bed, and or having their watch keep on pinging them all night, and
Yeah,
it where's the space? Like, I go back to the '70s, like, we had 3 channels in the radio,
right.
and we could go outside and, play without,
Yeah.
and use our imagination, and we were kinda guided, I had a Lego set, and I could just build whatever I want. It wasn't like it was just a bunch of blocks, I could just do what I want. Everything today is like, oh, it's kinda guided. It's themed, like, you're getting guided by the algorithm, guided by your toy that's not allowing you
Mhm.
to be creative. You're getting put all these boxes, too much overload, and then you're not
Yep.
being told, maybe you should take a walk in the woods. Maybe you should take your feet off and walk, put your feet in the grass. Maybe you should take a breathing exercise. Maybe you should turn off the TV and everybody sit down and talk at dinner at the table.
Right? I know.
Like that's like
It's
what
so
like the kitchen table in '74. Dad, mom, everybody's at the table. We're talking.
exactly. Yeah, my
Kitchen
parents
table
did a lot
26.
right.
Like, what
I
are people
know.
doing?
I know I talk about the things that they didn't, that they missed out on, but they did a lot right. And it's like that's the one of the things they did right is we always had meals together. We always talked about our days and how we were doing.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like people, I agree, we need to make the time for that again. And that does have to do with boundaries. Really deciding what are the external boundaries that I'm creating with technology And I want to also share about boundaries, like, because we're talking about a lot of really cool parallels between the creative music world and healing and creative relationships, which I think is awesome. And the one difference I think between, improv jazz and, improv relationships is boundaries. Because obviously anything goes with improv jazz because you're not going to hurt each other, right? Just because you play the wrong note. But in a relationship, obviously you also need boundaries. But even boundaries you can say from an open heart. You can say like, hey, I feel small. Could you please lower your tone of voice?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I would feel so much more respected if we slowed down and, really talked about what we need rather than criticize each other. And
Yeah.
it's, could you do that? And if not, I don't know if I could participate in this conversation, but I want to, and it's like, that's, and for me, what healing means is that, and in order to do that, we need to be aware and attuned to our own feelings and needs. And that also takes time.
Yeah, because a lot of times you won't speak out like what you're uncomfortable with. Like if you never tell anybody what your boundary is, like you're somebody's pushing and then you don't let them know. Like
Right.
what they do or what they say affects you badly, but they don't know that. Now maybe they don't. It's like there's a lot of nonverbal communication that human beings do, like,
Yep.
and maybe they can't pick up on it. But like, do you ever have any kind of like discussions about are people missing nonverbal cues
Oh,
on
totally.
top of the
Yeah.
verbal cues? Because like life isn't just what you say; it's what you
Yeah.
do with the nonverbal too.
I know the classic example of that, I think everyone's familiar with this, right? Is like and it's gender stereotyped, but it can equally go the other way. Like, so I'll use the gendered example, but so like the man asks, like, you seem angry. What's going on? I'm fine. I'm
Yeah,
fine. Everything's
this
fine.
looks fine.
you know um, and it's like, if we're not really able to open up about what's going on for us, and a lot of times we need space in order to be able to discover it. I do teach that if you're not sure what you're feeling and you don't want to say something critical, you can say, yes, I am processing something, but I need time before I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, that lets the other person know that there is something that you want to speak about. It's not like, I'm fine, right? Because then there's no opening there. Then you're
Yeah,
just
'cause
shutting the other person out. But a lot of times I don't want to be like, actually, I think that you're wrong, that right. And that's what I'm thinking. So it's like, obviously, I need time to be able to, like, okay, he didn't mean to hurt me, but I feel hurt. What do I need? And then speak it with an open heart. Actually, I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but here's, when you said that, but here's how I felt.
that's
I
not
felt
good.
small, and like, I really would love it if you said it in a way where it's kinder,
Mm.
where you're acknowledging that it's okay to be different. I don't have to think the same way that you do. I just need acceptance for that my point of view is different than yours. Is that true? Do you feel that way? And I'm not ready to say it like that until I've had a little space sometimes. So it's okay to create a boundary to take space, but that's different than putting a wall up and
Yeah,
being like,
pushing it
no,
down
like,
and
no,
never.
this is fine. Like, I'm okay. So,
Yeah, because it's kind of like people say something, right? And sometimes you want to go back and say, what did you mean by what you said, right? Like, this is what I heard. And a lot of
mhm,
people never get to that because they're just trying to win an argument. So they're not
right.
actually even listening. So
Yeah,
sometimes you
I
have to
never do
slow,
that. I never try to win arguments.
but you just want to slow it down. It's like, is this what you actually said? Because this is what I heard.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a really good one. Wait. This is what I heard. Is that what you meant? Yeah, totally. Like, I do that a lot, actually, because a lot of times I'm completely off, and then I'm hurt by something that he didn't even say or that he didn't even mean,
Yeah,
and
because
then
the
we can, like,
filter again. Your
go
filter
with
picks up,
that.
yeah, or your filter picks up like this is what I think he meant. And you jumped on that.
Right.
And then you're like, well, what did he really mean? And so if you just it's like to have that depth of communication, but we're so quick today because everything's so fast. because we're
Yeah,
living in this internet age. Everything's like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Respond to this. It's like it's all like just clip. Okay, everything's clipped for impact. But then
right.
you're wondering, like, are subconsciously we all communicating with the same kind of clipped impact?
Yeah, yeah, and I think, unfortunately, if we don't, create the time, which seems to be one of the main themes in this interview, it's important to create the time to check in with ourselves. How am I feeling? What am I needing? You know, what would make life more wonderful, as Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication, likes to say, and how can I speak that with an open heart? That takes a lot of time, and I want to say 5-10 minutes, because there is a scrollable list of feelings and needs that, I share with my clients. You can Google it if you
Mm,
want. Just Google list of feelings and needs, and tons of them will come up. So it only takes 5 minutes to really sink into yourself, look at the list, and tell what you're feeling and needing, and make a request. But a lot of times, I mean, like you're saying, we have these like 45-second like respond right. We don't give ourselves those 5 minutes. I know I didn't used to. I used to just like react, react, react.
yeah, it's our
And
reactive
then
economy.
we reinforce our automatic reactions, and then we're not healing. We're not, like, what I look at healing as is that we have access to all parts of ourselves. We're self-connected, we know what we're feeling, we're aware of what we need, we can move through life in an empowered place where we feel whole inside ourselves. And what I mean by loving every part of ourselves is even loving the part that doesn't love us,
Mm,
like saying, like, oh, that part has a concern. What is the concern of that part? What is the belief of that part? Where do they learn that? Is that true? What's evidence that that's not true? It's really taking time to slow down and validate, oh, it makes sense that I created a belief that there's something wrong with me because I never got empathy. But that's not true. I deserve it. I deserve to give it to myself. I deserve to receive it from others. I deserve to give it to others. And then all of a sudden, I'm changing my way of being. And I think what this is all about is experimenting, which is also creative. It's just
yeah.
noticing, like, I don't know the right way to be. Try it on. Try on spending 5 minutes and attuning to yourself with your feelings and needs. Does that feel better? Does that not feel better? I mean, because what you're talking about is, a lot of times, if something feels unfamiliar and uncomfortable, it doesn't feel better. But just try it on as a practice for a few days and notice if you feel better over time, right? So it's like, it doesn't have to be this long, heavy thing. It could just be fun experiments that you do with yourself.
Yeah, I think you just have to be curious. Like, you find that, like, artists are very curious and are willing to do things that are kinda not in the norm. It's in the bell curve, they're outside the bell curve. They kinda a lot of times we're neurodivergent, and we're willing to do things that, like, other people look at and say, "What the heck are you doing?" And it's a matter of, like, not being scared of the haters. Right? Not
Right.
being scared to, like, if I put something out there that you've never seen before, or it's not the most common thing that happens. There's like a very, "Oh, this person says things in a weird way," right? "This person has a strange way of dressing." Yeah, they don't wanna fit the norm. They're trying to do things a little different, and you can be super critical of it, or you can be accepting of it, but you'll see that the people on the outliers, they won't change just because people criticize.
Exactly.
And it also has to be a level of acceptance that's like they're willing to listen to what you have to say, but doesn't mean they're gonna change who they are, right?
Yeah.
And that's a level of independence that is interesting because, like, the idea of, like, successful women having a hard time trying to get relationships, is it because, like, they put themselves into this thing where, like, their career or what they wanna do is their priorities, their passion, and there's some people, maybe they want their passion to be them. They want it to be, you should just be passionate about me as your partner, not about what you're passionate about. Like, so how it would seem like a successful person has to find somebody that's not gonna think that that's a problem. They're gonna think, well, that's cool that this person's so passionate. So there's more of an alignment. So maybe there's a misalignment in who they're trying to get as a partner.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think that goes back to what you were saying in the beginning with having this like perfect idea of what you want a relationship to be. I think the more successful we are, the more high standards we have, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of clients come to me and say, I'm too picky. And it's like, well, you only need one person. So it's okay to be picky,
It's okay,
right?
yeah, that's what you
Um,
want.
but what I think, like, I mean, the main mistake that I see several mistakes that successful people make in relationships, but a big one is that like holding the other person to a high standard,
Mm,
being critical, because it's like a lot of people achieve success through being critical of themselves.
mm,
And then, and they're, I'm not gonna knock that and say it doesn't work, right? But it does lead to burnout. I think the research, mostly by Dr. Kristen Neff at the in the University of Texas, she did research with self-compassion and recognized the people that are more self-compassionate actually are more successful because when you take bigger risks, because you know that if you fail, you're gonna be compassionate and try again rather than beat yourself up. Like failure is
mm,
not as scary. Thinking outside the box is not as scary. So what I see with a lot of successful people is they tend to put themselves under a lot of pressure, and then they tend to put the relationship under a lot of pressure, and they tend to put a lot of expectations on the other person
mm,
and high standards on the other person. And then it's about learning how to be heart-centered and learning how to be collaborative and learning how to sort of like there's that principle that you could either be right or you can have a good relationship. So like a lot of people who are successful are kind of attached to being right, and relationships are about validating the other person's point of view too.
yeah,
And not that that means that you need to say they're right and you're not, but I love to teach this story. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of the three blind men and the elephant. Have you heard that one?
think I've heard it, but you can tell me if I don't have it right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a fun one. It's there's an elephant and whatever. I think they just chose a big animal, or maybe this is from India, who knows? But three blind men want to know what the elephant looks like. So one is in its trunk and the other is on its leg and the other is on its tail, and then they're arguing. Like the one that's on its trunk is like, I know the elephant is like a hose, and the one that's on its leg is like, you're wrong, the elephant's like a tree trunk, and the one that's on his tail is like, no, you're both wrong, the elephant's like a broom. And then they're arguing about it when it's like, well, the question is who's right.
They're all right. Everybody's right.
Exactly, they're all right from their unique points of view, and none of them are right because none of them see the big picture,
They don't
right?
see the
So
whole.
it's
They
like,
only have a picture of it, a piece of it, piece of the picture.
exactly. So that's what it takes to have a successful relationship. And then we can make fun jokes about like talking about the elephant in the room. Um, but it's like learning how to validate the other person's point of view doesn't mean that you're saying your point is wrong. It's like, oh, wait a minute. From your point of view, it's like a hose. From my point of view, it's like a broom. We're both right from our unique points of view. That's really hard for somebody who's spent their whole life being successful in the business world, because that's not the way the business world teaches us how to think.
Yeah, there's gonna be like the winning, you know, idea or the project that hits the mark and the project that doesn't. So if the project doesn't hit the mark, it's not good.
Right.
It's like being measured in a kind of capitalist point of view. So if it doesn't give you money or power or save time or more efficient, then it's not good. Where an artist was like, hey, this piece didn't get in the gallery. This
Right.
one did, but guess what? The reason this piece is in the gallery because the one that didn't get in the gallery made me create this other piece. So they trying to act like just because it didn't sell doesn't mean it's not valuable. So if somebody has a
Exactly.
point of view where everything is just like on and off, yes and no, right and wrong, they can't see the shades like you're saying. They can't see like, there could be a bunch of things that are just pieces of the picture, and it actually helped you get there. If you saw a piece in this angle, you saw this, and the other angle, you see that. Around the corner, you see this. Well, your perspective is everything. It's like, doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It's just like your perspective.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, relationships are more like art than business.
Yeah, and I think we're
Um,
kind of, sometimes it seems like we put them in a business frame or we put them in a fairy tale frame.
right, right,
It's
right,
gotta be
right.
this idealized vision. I'm gonna be Cinderella. I'm gonna be, King Arthur. I'm gonna run my court. You got these guys got this mindset. I'm gonna run my castle. I'm king of
Right.
my castle. Like, really? I don't think
It
anybody
could
wants to
be
be
like
in your castle.
right, I mean, it could be fun if you're explicit about it and you, like, have role plays about it, like, when my husband and I like to do role plays about, like, "I'm the damsel in distress, and you're my knight in shining armor," but it's like, that's not the rigid roles we put ourselves in on a daily basis. It's, like, something you can have fun playing with. And same thing about, I think that like some principles, it's actually really ironic because I interviewed somebody for my podcast this morning about how to apply business principles to relationships that work well. And there's some principles that do work, meaning like
A bunch
to
of
have a weekly meeting about logistical things so those things don't bleed into the rest of the relationship and you can enjoy it. But in general, if you try to take the paradigm of success into your relationships, then you're not validating the other person's point of view. You're not addressing their feelings and needs. You're not feeling like, hey, wait a minute, we're on the same team. We don't have to compete with each other. I
yeah,
think that a lot of people that are successful unconsciously bring
competitive.
that success paradigm and that right wrong paradigm into relationships. And then their partner feels criticized and they feel put down and they feel bulldozed.
Yeah, and then you're gonna just have conflict. There's always gonna need a conflict resolution because there's no harmony if you're not living, let live. Like, if you can't, like, you gotta win every conversation that is an argument, and you
Right,
have
right,
to win the
exactly.
argument. Instead of it's a conversation, let's talk about, like, "Hey, I believe in X, and, well, I believe in Y." Well, X is the only thing. So you
Mhm.
have to spend the next, 5 days telling you X is the only thing you should believe. Well,
Yeah,
until you believe that I don't win, and so how comfortable is that?
yeah, it's really rigid, like, if I feel that it feels like I'm in this little box and, like, I don't wanna live in a little box, I wanna feel like I'm free to experiment and play, right?
Yeah. Is this hard to have such a narrow frame? Because 'Cause I'm very into this idea of, like, expansion.
Yeah,
So expansion in terms of music is I'm not stuck on one genre. One day I might feel
exactly.
like doing some punk, my wife wanna do some bebop, I might wanna do something psychedelic. But the industry says tries to say, "You gotta tell everybody from A&R what you do is like, you're only this." It's like, and a lot of times artists, we're not really only one thing, but
Exactly.
they wanna pin us into one thing, and it's like, "No," and it's hard because it's like the world wants to put you in the box,
Right.
and they'll tell you, "Well, that'll be successful," and if you get put into that box and you really didn't wanna do it, you'll be in that bad relationship situation. You'll be in doing something that maybe is monetarily successful, but it's not soul successful. You're not happy. And when you're not
Exactly.
happy, bad things happen.
Yeah, 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 and but that's the million-dollar question, right, is how do we be happy? And, happiness is an inside job is another one of those sound bites that I like.
Yeah.
Um, and paradoxically, um, there's this concept in relationships of interdependence, but we
Mhm.
need to know how to be happy within ourselves. That's why I was talking about being happy single before, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
healthfully independent. We need to be healthfully independent before we could be interdependent. But once you are in a committed relationship, you actually influence each other's heart rate, blood pressure, cortisol levels, nervous system, So it's like we do influence each other, and it is important to develop secure attachment, which is the behaviors of really being a safe haven, meaning we do give each other empathy and validation of our feelings and needs, and a secure base, meaning that we're empowering each other in the ways that we want to grow. And so that's the outside job, right? Like we can't, yes, we can give that to ourselves, but then why do we want a relationship? Because the
Yeah, 'cause is
attachment research shows what's called the dependency paradox, which is that if you have this healthful interdependence where you know how to make yourself happy so you're not needy, but then you're choosing to get support from the other person as well, the more you are healthfully interdependent with each other. Like, you know that if I'm failing, I won't just give myself empathy, but I'll get that from my partner and he'll give me the encouragement I need to get back up again. Then we take more risks in the world and we're more successful. So,
Yeah, it
you
seems
know,
like you were that kinda idealized, like, swan pair bond. There's, like, this
yeah,
beautiful dance, and, like, they're in sync, like, in nature, if you see something like that, you see these birds are totally in sync, and they look like they love each other, right?
yeah,
They're 2 separate beings, but they're combined in that pair bond, and it's beautiful. You're like, it's you're they're not humans, but you can see it, and you're
yeah,
like, "Wow, how come we can't be like that?" You know,
yeah.
so you say, like, there are situations where humans can be at that level if they get aligned,
Yes,
and they're
exactly.
still independent beings, but there's a point where there is this pair bond that when it's meaningful and it's like, if it actually is meant to be, then it will be. You know,
Yeah.
instead of trying to, like, idealize it, I want it to be, but it's actually not a good fit. I think a lot of people put themselves into, like, it's not really a good fit, but you're trying to make it a good fit. And then you
Right.
have to come to that realization, with the divorce rates we see, there's gotta be a lot of that going on because it's, like, misaligned.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times that is the case where people are misaligned. And as a relationship coach, my goal is never to keep people together. It's to have them find whether or not they're aligned, and if not, to part amicably. But a lot of times, if people break up, it's because they get into these negative cycles and they don't know how to get out of it. And that's where the healing happens. Where when I work with couples in that case, a lot of times they break up, but then that's why the divorce statistics are actually higher for second and third marriages than they are for first marriages, right? First marriage is something like 40% divorce rate. Second is 60, third is 70. That's why the
Wow.
average is 50. But so it's like, until we realize we're the common denominator, a lot of times we just repeat the same mistakes
Yeah,
with
you like,
the
you keep on
husband.
going to this, I moved to Detroit, I go to Philadelphia, I go to Chicago. I'm having a bad time in every city, but what's the common denominator? I'm
Yeah.
the one in every city.
Yes, exactly. Or you need to leave the US, which, people might need to think about at this point. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, I get that too. But it's like wherever you go, it's you that you're there, right? So you gotta figure it out. It's like it's not the environment. Sometimes it can be because things are going on, like you said. But yeah, it's this idea of, like, again, at the base of it, that looking glass self aligning, what is it, who are you? Like, 'cause a lot of times people, they really don't know who they are.
Yeah,
They get
yeah,
to a place where
exactly.
they have not really identified, and if you don't know where you are, you go into a relationship and you have no idea, I think that you're gonna have those rates that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And sometimes you do choose someone who's misaligned if you don't know who you are. But what I'll say about that is, like, if you think that it's the other person's fault and that's why you're leaving, I think that's the main reason to seek outside support
To see
from
if
a coach or
really
from a
find out,
therapist
like,
or
what's
somebody.
really going on.
Because usually it's not just one person's fault. Usually you're seeing the worst version of them because you're caught in a negative cycle.
Mhm.
And when I work with just one person in the relationship, I help to teach how to be right within oneself, how to know our feelings and needs, how to speak with an open heart, how to treat the other person like they're on our team, how to really resolve conflict. And then once you break the cycle, you get to see who that other person really is. And then there might be a misalignment and it might be time to leave, but then you'll part amicably. Or a lot of times I would say, I don't know the statistics because I mean, I've been doing this for like 20 years, but I will say that the majority of people that I work with, where I just work with one person, that it does shift the whole dynamic of the relationship, and then the relationship improves after that, which doesn't mean they're compatible. right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people still break up at that point, but then the breakup process is much smoother and you don't argue about, like when
Nothing.
my ex-husband and I
Drama.
got divorced, we actually didn't argue at all. It
No
was like
drama.
the only thing we argued about was who got the soda stream.
Yeah, if you can have less drama, it's always better. Like if you can get somebody like less drama in their lives, less volatility, if you can come out to where you can at least have a collegial like conversation, you're not yelling, you're not screaming, you're not freaking out. I think yeah, that's just trying to get to the adult world of you know things being a little bit not like out at the outer edge of like crisis because we
Right,
have so many problems. Like if you can de-escalate,
right.
like I took politics is like why do we have diplomats? Because we want to talk it out. We don't want to have a big like World War II. It's like we have a diplomat, we have a conversation. There's a soft skill. It's a soft power. You can do a lot with words. And if you can learn how to actually speak those words in a productive way, so you're
Yeah,
you're kind of teaching the diplomacy at the microcosm level.
exactly. Yeah, that is actually kinda how I look at it. We have to be diplomatic in our relationships, otherwise, they're not gonna work. Um, and that is, like, when I visualize what I wanna create in the world, it is more harmony between everybody, right? Like, my grand vision is that the whole world can validate each other's point of view and people can feel like we're not so polarized and we can actually get along, but obviously, I'm also an introvert, so
Yes,
I don't
you can go with
um,
that.
I've taught a lot of workshops, but it's always, like, depleting for me, so that's why I love to do the one-on-one work, and, yeah, I do look at it as these little microcosms, like, I'm helping
Well,
to
microcosm, feeds into the macrocosm. So the more work you do on the individual microcosm, you actually affect the macrocosms. I mean, I was a sociology major, so the work you do has an effect. It's not in isolation. Like everybody always thinks things are isolated. Even if you work on an individual level, if you fix that individual mindset, then they go on and there's less friction. Like that less friction in the world affects other people.
Yeah,
So it affect even though it's this one person one on one, you affect everything. Every decision you make is affects other things. So there's a cascading, especially with human beings. The sociology
yeah.
of how we behave is like all these interactions that you think are isolated we can kind of map out like they're not so isolated.
Yeah, 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 that's really beautiful. It reminds me of, like, the butterfly effect, if you're familiar with that.
Hmm. I
Um,
think it's super important the work you do because like you're comfortable at the microcosm level, you're doing one on one. If when you're successful at that and you do that for decades, it has a cumulative effect. It's a positive effect on humanity because you're trying to heal people, and healing's always going to be better than hurting. You know,
right.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
I'm a Buddhist.
Absolutely.
I'm like a Buddhist I'm a Buddhist, so like karmically, that's good
Mhm.
karma. So I
Oh,
think
yeah,
it's a very positive thing.
absolutely. Yeah, like, speaking of Buddhism, yeah, and it's like my husband and I just, did a 10-day meditation retreat. We just ended it together. It was a jhana meditation retreat, which does have a Buddhist origin, and just doing that together created so much synergy. We actually felt like those swan pair bonds.
Oh, that's cool. That's very
It was
good.
so like, we feel so heart-centered and so aligned, and so, so I highly recommend, like, any and I'm not saying that couples need to have the same spiritual practice,
No,
but,
no, you find what
um
works for you. I mean, some people spirituality is a personal thing, you can't force it on anybody. Like I know a lot of people are like outside of my practice, and it's like I don't try to push it on anybody. It's like whatever you feel brings you closer to
yeah,
like where you want to be. That's cool. As long as you're not like get into this negative space or hurtful space to yourself or other people. That's all I care about is like just just live with other humans in a positive way.
Right? I know. It sounds so simple, but,
Oh, it's
you know,
harder than you think.
much easier said than done, right? But, it really all does come down to how are you treating yourself? Are you kind to yourself? Are you compassionate to your own feelings and needs? Can you then from that space, because we treat other people the way we treat ourselves.
Hmm.
We talk to other people the way we talk to ourselves. So that's what I do when I work with clients one-on-one is I help them reframe their inner critic into self-compassion, which is more effective according to the research, in terms of how to motivate them and using that to challenge their stories and have empathy for their feelings and needs. Then of course we can then extend that to someone else and feel like we're on the same team with them. It's just so beautiful to see what's possible when we can be kind to ourselves. But it's so much easier than said than done.
Well, the hard work is like anything. Is like if you want to do anything that's gonna have any value, it usually is dedicated self, work. You have to put the work in. And it really is like everything you practice in life is about like the training and like what you're teaching people is like strategies to like practice. If you're gonna take time to learn golf, you're gonna take time to learn an instrument, learn a language, you have to put the work in.
Yep.
I believe relationships are the same thing. People have to learn. You just can't wing it. You just can't. They're like, I'm just gonna. I mean, do it off the cuff. It's like it's probably not
Right.
gonna work that well.
I mean, you can if like you had a incredibly harmonious relationship with your parents and siblings growing up. Then I feel like you just have those internal skills to wing it, but I've never met anyone like that.
Yeah, it seems like maybe like that's not the most common situation. So, if you can, that's cool, but you might need some work. I want to let
Right.
people know we have a QR code for your website, the code valeriegreen.com. Is so people take their phone and scan that QR code. It'll bring them right to your website. I see that that's for a free strategy session. We can tell people about what that is.
Yeah, 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 and if you go to the homepage of my website, I also have a bunch of free gifts, if you're not ready for one-on-one coaching right away, I have free ebooks and video trainings too. But the link that you're mentioning, I also offer a free 90-minute session. And that's for people that know that they're ready to hire a coach and they want to talk to me to see if I'm the right fit for them. So the reason it's 90 minutes is because I really need, I've been doing this for so long. I just know what I need is to know your history, your relationship history, what you've already tried so that you're not reinventing the wheel here, right? And then to really create this vision for what you want to be experiencing. And, that it's not overly idealistic, like you're talking about, this fairy tale fantasy, but that it's a real, realistic vision. And I help you clarify that. And then we create a plan for the skills and the mindset shifts and the healing work, whatever it is. I mean, that's why I integrate so many different modalities together. That's why I develop custom programs for people. And then there's no obligation to continue, but I give people a plan that they could implement on their own if they don't want to work with me. So that's I'll give that away for free. Of course, there's an application process for that. So that's the link is for the application. But it's really fulfilling for me to do because I just love attuning to people. And, it was like my main wound is that I felt like I wasn't attuned to enough. So it's like, that's just my joy is to attune to other people and figure out what makes them tick and what they need in order to thrive. And, it's what I feel really fulfilled giving. So I just feel really grateful to have the opportunity.
Well, that's great. I like to provide that QR code because it gives people a way to immediately get to the website. Though we've been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick, and you'll be able to click on both your Instagram link and that link directly in the podcast description on those channels on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. We will be on all the other podcast channels where you can listen to or watch a podcast. We'll create a landing page for your for the audience, and that includes like Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcast, a bunch of them. And we provide that to you through the communication we've done with you. But so we'll put that out in the world, and we'll create some clips and tag you on Instagram as a collaborator if you're into that. we
Yeah.
do some clips to highlight the show, some
That was
points,
fun.
and that's what we do with all of our guests. But I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. People will check it out on the replay, check out the clips we're going to put up, when you see it. And I want to thank you again for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. This was super fun, and I'll totally share it because the more people learn about, and this has been a fun conversation because the more people learn about how creativity in life and music merges with healing and creativity in relationships, the more fun it can be.
Yes, I want to thank you. We had a great conversation, and I hope everybody checks out a further detail on your free strategy session and check you out on Instagram. And hope to talk to you again in the future. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.